Marcus Stone stepped out of his silver Bentley onto Fifth Avenue, adjusting his designer suit. At 45, he had everything money could buy: the penthouse apartment, the successful investment firm, the yacht in the Hamptons. But something was missing, and he couldn't shake that empty feeling no matter how many zeros he added to his bank account. He was heading to his usual coffee shop when he saw her. There on the busy street corner, surrounded by buckets of fresh flowers, stood a face he'd never forgotten. Gloria Williams. His heart stopped for a moment. 25 years ago, they'd been high school sweethearts in a small town in Georgia. Gloria had been the preacher's daughter, and he'd been the son of their housekeeper. Everyone said they'd never work out, but they didn't care. They'd spend hours dreaming about their future together, sitting on her father's porch swing. But life had other plans. Marcus got a scholarship to Yale, and Gloria's father forbade her from following him up north. The last time he saw her, she was crying at the bus station, promising she'd wait for him. But when he came back for Christmas break, her family had moved away without a trace. Now here she was, selling flowers on a Manhattan street corner. Her hair had a few strands of gray, and life had left its mark on her face. But those eyes, those warm brown eyes, were exactly the same. "Gloria?" Marcus called out, moving closer. "Gloria Williams!" She looked up, and the recognition hit her like a wave. The bundle of roses she was holding tumbled to the ground. "Marcus? Marcus Stone?" He rushed to help her pick up the fallen flowers. Their hands touched, and that old spark was still there, making his heart race just like when they were teenagers. "I can't believe it's really you," Gloria said, her voice trembling. "I see your name in the papers sometimes, Stone Investments. You made it big, just like you always said you would." But something was off. Despite her smile, Marcus could see worry lines creasing her forehead. Her clothes were worn and her hands were rough from work. This wasn't the future they'd dreamed about for her. "What happened, Gloria? Why are you selling flowers on the street?" She glanced away, arranging her flowers with shaking hands. "Life happened, Marcus. Not all of us got to chase our dreams." Just then, a young woman approached Gloria's flower stand. She was in her early 20s, with Gloria's same warm eyes and gentle smile. "Mom, I brought you some lunch," she said, holding up a paper bag. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. The young woman looked exactly like Gloria did at that age, except for one detail. She had his mother's dimpled smile. "Mom?" Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. Gloria's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, this is Rose, your daughter." The busy New York street seemed to fade away. All those years of success, all those achievements, none of it mattered compared to what he was hearing right now. He had a daughter he never knew about. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice cracking with emotion. "Your mother found me after you left for Yale," Gloria explained, wiping away tears. "She told me your scholarship was your only chance at a better life. She said if I told you about the baby, you'd give it all up to come back home. I couldn't let you sacrifice your dreams, Marcus, not for me." Rose stood there, looking between them with growing understanding. She'd grown up hearing stories about her father, the boy who got out of their small town, who made something of himself. But she never expected to meet him like this on a busy Manhattan street corner. "All these years," Marcus said, running his hands through his salt and pepper hair. "I looked for you, Gloria. I hired private investigators. Your father wouldn't tell me anything." "Daddy never forgave me for getting pregnant," Gloria admitted. "We moved to Atlanta, and I raised Rose on my own. I did the best I could, working whatever jobs I could find. Rose is in college now, studying business, just like her father." Marcus looked at his daughter with pride and heartbreak. She'd been right here in New York, probably walking past his office building every day. He'd missed everything: her first steps, her first words, her graduation. "I have so much to make up for," he said, reaching for Gloria's hand. "Both of you. Please, let me help." But Gloria pulled away, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "It's not that simple, Marcus. There's more you need to know, so much more." A black SUV with tinted windows drove slowly past the flower stand, and Marcus noticed how Gloria tensed up. Something was wrong. His Gloria, the strongest person he'd ever known, was scared. "What is it?" he asked. "What aren't you telling me?" Gloria's eyes darted to the SUV as it turned the corner. "I can't talk here. It's not safe. Some people, some dangerous people, they're looking for me. That's why I'm selling flowers instead of using my nursing degree. I need to stay invisible." Marcus felt his protective instincts kick in, the same ones he'd had all those years ago when the high school bullies would try to give Gloria trouble. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Just like we used to promise." Rose watched them with tears in her eyes. All her life she'd wondered about her father, and now here he was, still looking at her mother the same way he did in the old photograph she kept hidden in her Bible. "Let me help you," Marcus pleaded. "Both of you. Whatever trouble you're in, I have resources now. I can protect you." Gloria looked at her daughter, then back at Marcus. 25 years of separation, of secrets, of running and hiding. Maybe it was time to stop. Maybe fate had brought them back together for a reason. "Okay," she whispered, "but not here. Meet me at St. Patrick's Cathedral at sunset. I'll tell you everything." As Marcus watched Gloria and Rose pack up their flowers and hurry away, he knew his life would never be the same. The emptiness he'd felt all these years finally made sense. What was missing wasn't something money could buy. It was them, his real family. He pulled out his phone and cancelled all his meetings for the day. Nothing was more important than discovering the truth about the woman he'd never stopped loving and the daughter he never knew he had. But he couldn't shake the feeling that Gloria's secret was bigger and more dangerous than he could imagine. The sun was setting behind St. Patrick's Cathedral, casting long shadows across the steps where Marcus waited. He'd spent the afternoon in a daze, unable to focus on anything except the revelation that he had a daughter. Every few minutes, he checked his watch and scanned the crowds for Gloria and Rose. Inside his pocket, he felt the familiar shape of the small silver locket he'd carried for 25 years. It was the only thing he had left from their time together. A picture of them at their high school prom, Gloria in her blue dress, both of them young and full of dreams. Finally, he saw them approaching. Gloria had changed out of her flower-selling clothes into a simple dress, and Rose walked close beside her, protective like she was used to watching out for her mother. "You came," Gloria said softly, climbing the cathedral steps. "I never stopped." "Coming when you needed me," Marcus replied. Even after all these years, they found a quiet corner inside the cathedral, away from tourists and visitors. The peaceful sound of hymns floated through the air as Gloria began to tell her story. "After you left for Yale, I found out I was pregnant. Your mother, Sarah, she came to see me. She said you'd worked so hard for that scholarship that it was your only chance to break free from poverty. She begged me not to tell you about the baby." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. My mother had no right to make that decision. "She thought she was protecting you," Gloria defended. "And maybe she was right. Look at all you've accomplished." "But I missed my daughter's whole life." Marcus's voice echoed off the cathedral walls, making a few people turn their heads. Rose reached over and took his hand. It was such a simple gesture, but it nearly broke him. "I knew about you," she said. "Mom kept every newspaper article about your success. She made sure I knew my father was someone special." Gloria pulled an old folded newspaper clipping from her purse. It showed Marcus on the cover of Business Weekly, announcing his company's expansion into international markets. The paper was worn like it had been handled many times. "But that's not why we're hiding," Marcus said, remembering the black SUV. "What happened, Gloria?" She took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I was working as a nurse at Atlanta General Hospital. One night I was assigned to a private wing. A man had been brought in with gunshot wounds. He wasn't supposed to survive the night. Gloria's hands trembled as she continued. His name was Vincent Romano. While I was checking his vitals, he woke up and started talking. Delirious from the pain medication, he told me everything about the money laundering, the corrupt politicians, the murders. He was a mob accountant trying to escape with evidence that could bring down half the criminal organizations in the Southeast. Marcus felt his blood run cold. He knew the Romano case. It had been all over the news. The key witness who disappeared. before the trial allowing dozens of dangerous criminals to walk free. Romano survived, Gloria continued, her voice barely a whisper. When he came to his senses, he realized what he'd told me. He tried to convince me to testify, to help bring them down. But these people, they're everywhere. They have cops and judges in their pockets. When Romano turned up dead in his hospital bed, I knew we had to run. Rose squeezed her mother's hand. We've been moving ever since. Changed our names 4 times. Mom can't use her nursing license because they might track it. That's why we sell flowers. Cash only, no paper trail. Marcus felt sick thinking about Gloria and Rose living in fear all these years while he'd been enjoying his wealthy lifestyle. Why didn't you come to me for help? They watch anyone connected to Romano's case, Gloria explained. I couldn't risk leading them to you. But last month something changed. I saw one of Romano's old associates here in New York. He recognized me. That's why we're selling flowers near your office. I knew if things got bad, you were our only hope. Just then, Rose's phone buzzed. Her face went pale as she read the message. Mom, they found our apartment. Everything's destroyed. Gloria grabbed her daughter's hand. We need to go. Now. No, Marcus said firmly. No more running. Come, home with me. My penthouse has security, cameras, everything. You'll be safe there while I make some calls. I know people in the FBI in witness protection. We'll figure this out together. Marcus, I can't ask you to risk everything you've built, Gloria protested. Pulled out the silver locket and opened it, showing her the old prom photo. You and Rose are everything. The rest is just money and buildings. A church bell rang, making Gloria jump. Through the stained glass windows, they could see it was almost dark. Time to make a decision. Trust me, Marcus pleaded. Like you used to? Gloria looked at their daughter, then back at Marcus. In his eyes, she saw the same determination she'd fallen in love with all those years ago. Finally, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Together. As they walked out of the cathedral, Marcus made sure Gloria and Rose walked in front of him where he could see them. His driver was waiting with the Bentley, and Marcus carefully checked the street before letting them get in. As they drove toward his penthouse, he made a silent promise to the teenager he used to be, the one who let Gloria slip away once before. Never again. But in the rearview mirror, a black SUV pulled out into traffic behind them, the same one from the flower stand. And inside his expensive suit jacket, Marcus felt the reassuring weight of something he never thought he'd need in his corporate life: a gun. Marcus's penthouse took up the entire top floor of one of Manhattan's most exclusive buildings. As they stepped out of the elevator, Gloria and Rose couldn't help but gasp. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of Central Park, and everything sparkled with wealth and luxury. It's beautiful, Rose whispered, but so empty. Marcus looked around his expensive home and saw it through their eyes. Designer furniture that had never felt the warmth of family gatherings, a kitchen where he never cooked meals, picture frames filled with business awards instead of family photos. I always felt something was missing, he admitted. Now I know what it was. The doorman called up to announce that their luggage had arrived from Gloria and Rose's destroyed apartment, whatever the intruders had left intact. Marcus had sent his most trusted security team to salvage what they could. There's a guest wing through here, Marcus said, leading them down a hallway. You'll each have your own room. The elevator needs a special key to reach this floor, and there's 24-hour security in the lobby. Gloria set her purse down on a marble counter. Marcus, we can't stay here long. These people, they won't stop looking for us. Let me make some calls first, he insisted. I have connections in law enforcement, people who owe me favors. We'll figure this out. Rose explored her new room, running her fingers over the silk bedspread. Mom, maybe he's right. We can't keep running forever. Just then, Marcus's private elevator chimed. Gloria jumped, but Marcus held up a reassuring hand. That's just Maria, my housekeeper. She's worked for me for 15 years. The elevator doors opened, and an elderly woman with silver hair stepped out. When she saw Gloria, she dropped her handbag. Dios mío, Maria gasped. It's you, from his pictures. Gloria looked confused, but Marcus felt his face grow warm. Maria had caught him many times looking at old photographs he kept locked in his desk drawer. "Maria, this is Gloria and our daughter Rose. They'll be staying with us for a while." Maria's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Rose. "I always prayed he would find you both." She hurried forward to hug them, then stepped back, embarrassed by her emotional display. "I'll make up the guest rooms properly, and dinner. You must be hungry." As Maria bustled away, Gloria turned to Marcus. "You kept pictures of me." Before he could answer, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Sarah Stone, his mother. Marcus stepped onto the balcony to take the call. "Mother?" "Marcus, what are you doing?" Sarah's voice was sharp with worry. "I just got a call from Gerald at the security desk. He said Gloria Williams is there with a young woman." "You knew," Marcus said, his voice hard. "All these years you knew I had a daughter." There was a long pause. "I did what I thought was best for you. Best for me. Or best for your dream of having a son who made it big." The bitter words tumbled out before he could stop them. "Do you know what Gloria's been through? What Rose has been through?" "Marcus, listen to me," Sarah pleaded. "There's something you don't know about Gloria." "You mean about Vincent Romano, about the mob?" "Yeah, I know all about that. And I'm going to protect them, Mother, the way I should have been doing all along." "It's worse than you think," Sarah insisted. "After you left for Yale, Gloria's father didn't just move them away. He was involved with—" The line went dead. Marcus looked at his phone. No signal. That was impossible. He had the best coverage money could buy. He rushed back inside to find Gloria and Rose in the kitchen with Maria, who was making her famous tortilla soup. The scene looked so right, so perfect, his family finally together. "The phones are down," he announced. Maria frowned. "The TV signal too. I was about to watch my novella." Marcus went to his security panel and checked the cameras. The feed from the lobby was gone. So was the feed from the parking garage and all exterior cameras. "This isn't a coincidence," Gloria said, her face pale. "They found us." Just then, they heard the emergency stairwell door bang open down the hall. Heavy footsteps echoed off the marble floors. "The panic room," Marcus said, grabbing Gloria's hand. "Behind the bookcase in my office. Maria, go with them." "What about you?" Rose cried. "I'll be right behind you. Go." As Maria led Gloria and Rose to the office, Marcus ran to his bedroom. He punched in the code to his safe and grabbed his gun and a stack of cash. On his way out, he caught a glimpse of a photograph on his nightstand. Him and Gloria at their high school prom, young and in love. The footsteps were getting closer. Marcus heard men's voices giving directions, dividing up to search the penthouse. He counted at least 4 distinct voices. In the office, Gloria was helping Maria into the panic room while Rose stood frozen, staring at the family photos on Marcus's desk. There she was as a baby, as a toddler, as a teenager. Newspaper photos Gloria had sent anonymously to Marcus's office over the years, making sure he had some record of his daughter's life even if he didn't know it. "Rose, come on," Gloria whispered, urgently. But Rose wasn't looking at the photos anymore. She was looking past Marcus, her eyes wide with terror. In the doorway stood a man in an expensive suit, pointing a gun at them. "Hello, Gloria," the man said softly. "It's been a long time," Gloria gasped. "Daddy." The man who had once been Gloria's father, the preacher who had driven Marcus and Gloria apart all those years ago, stepped into the room. But his eyes weren't filled with heavenly righteousness anymore. They were cold and calculating like a snake's. "You've caused a lot of trouble running away with Romano's evidence," he said. "Did you really think you could hide forever? Especially here with him?" Marcus raised his gun, stepping in front of Gloria and Rose. "You're not touching them," Gloria's father laughed. "You still don't get it, do you, boy? Why do you think your mother tried so hard to keep you and Gloria apart? She knew what I really was, what I'm still doing for the family, and now you're all loose ends that need to be tied up." Outside the office, more footsteps approached. They were surrounded. Time seemed to freeze in Marcus's office as everyone stared at Gloria's father, Reverend James Williams. Gone was the holy man who once preached about sin and redemption. In his place stood someone much more dangerous, a man who'd been hiding his true nature behind a collar and a Bible for decades. "You were working for them all along," Gloria whispered, her voice shaking. "All those years you preached about righteousness." One had to keep the sunny clean, Reverend William said with a cold smile. The church was perfect. Who questions where donation money comes from? Who looks too closely at a man of God? Marcus kept his gun steady, even as more men filed into the office. He counted 6 of them now, all armed, all looking to Reverend Williams for orders. Sarah figured it out, didn't she? Gloria asked. That's why she sent Marcus away to Yale. She was protecting him from you. The Reverend adjusted his gold cufflinks, a far cry from the simple attire he used to wear in their small Georgia town. Your mother was always too clever for her own good, Marcus. She discovered my connection to certain organizations, threatened to expose everything unless I kept you and Gloria apart. Rose stepped forward, her voice strong despite her fear. So you're not just my grandfather. You're the reason we've been running all these years. Stupid girl, Reverend Williams spat. If your mother had kept her mouth shut about what Romano told her, none of this would be happening. But no, Gloria always had to play the hero. The evidence, Marcus said suddenly. You're not just here for Gloria. You're here for whatever Romano gave her. Gloria's hand went instinctively to her neck where a small silver cross hung on a chain. The Reverend's eyes followed the movement, and his smile widened. Very good, Marcus. Always were a smart boy. That's right. My dear daughter has been carrying around a USB drive full of banking records, transaction histories, names, dates. Everything Romano stole before we caught him. It's already been copied, Gloria said defiantly. Sent to people who'll know what to do with it if anything happens to us. But her father just laughed. You're bluffing, I know you, Gloria. You wouldn't risk innocent people by giving them that information. You're too much like your dead mother, always trying to protect everyone else. Marcus saw Gloria flinch at the mention of her mother, and suddenly old pieces started falling into place. Her car accident, he said. The one that happened right after I left for Yale. That wasn't an accident, was it? She was going to ruin everything, Reverend Williams said coldly. Just like you're trying to do now, Gloria, like mother, like daughter. Maria, who had been quietly inching toward the panic room's hidden door, suddenly grabbed a heavy crystal vase from Marcus's desk and threw it at the nearest gunman. The crash and confusion gave Marcus the opening he needed. Now, he yelled, shoving Gloria and Rose toward the panic room while firing his gun at the ceiling. The sprinkler system activated, filling the room with chaos and spray. Rose made it through the hidden door first, then Gloria. Marcus backed up slowly, keeping his gun trained on the Reverend, while Maria slipped into the panic room behind them. You can't hide in there forever, Reverend Williams called out as Marcus reached the doorway. And when you come out, I'll be waiting, just like I've been waiting all these years. Marcus slammed the panic room door shut just as bullets started flying. Through the reinforced walls, they could hear the gunmen cursing as alarms began blaring throughout the building. Inside, the panic room. Screens showed feeds from every camera in the penthouse. They watched as the gunmen spread out, taking positions around the apartment. Reverend Williams sat calmly in Marcus's office chair, pulling out a phone. The police will come, Rose said hopefully. They won't help, Gloria replied, pulling the silver cross from her neck. Your grandfather has too many of them in his pocket. She opened the cross to reveal a tiny USB drive. This is what they want. 25 years of criminal transactions, all leading back to the biggest names in organized crime. And your grandfather is the one who made it all possible. Marcus pulled out his phone, but there was no signal in the panic room. We need to get that evidence to someone we can trust. Someone they can't reach. I know someone, Maria said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. My son. He works for the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force in Washington. He's been building a case against the Romano family for years. You never told me that, Marcus said, surprised. Maria's eyes were full of tears. Because I was protecting him. Just like your mother protected you, Mr. Marcus. Just like Gloria protected Rose. Sometimes love means keeping secrets. Gloria squeezed the older woman's hand. Can you contact him? The panic room has a secure landline, Marcus said, moving to a panel on the wall. One that bypasses the building's main system. We can call out, but no one can trace it. as Marcus dialed the number. Maria gave him. Gloria looked at the screen showing her father in the office. He was looking directly at the camera, smiling like he used to before delivering a particularly fire and brimstone sermon. "All these years," she whispered. "I thought he hated me for getting pregnant, for shaming the family, but he was just worried. I'd discover what he really was." Rose hugged her mother tightly. "We're going to be okay. We're together now, all of us." Marcus got through to Maria's son and quickly explained the situation. Help would be coming. Real help this time. But they had to hold out until it arrived. On the screens, they watched as more men entered the penthouse. Reverend Williams was building an army outside their safe room. And somehow, they knew this was just the beginning. The old preacher's voice crackled through the panic room's speaker system. He'd found the intercom. "I'll make you a deal, Gloria. Give me the drive and I'll let your daughter live. That's more mercy than your mother got." Gloria's hands shook as she clutched the USB drive. "He's lying. He'll kill us all no matter what we do." Marcus took her hand, feeling the familiar softness that had haunted his dreams for 25 years. "We're not giving up. Not this time. I lost you once because of him. Never again." In the distance, they could hear sirens approaching. But would they bring help or more danger? In their small fortress, surrounded by screens showing the growing threat outside, 4 people who had been strangers just hours ago became something else. A family ready to fight for their survival. Inside the panic room, Marcus checked the time. 20 minutes had passed since they'd called Maria's son at the FBI. On the security screens, they watched as police cars surrounded the building, but no one came up to the penthouse floor. "They're his people," Gloria said, watching the officers simply stand guard outside. Just like in Atlanta. Maria was sitting in a corner, praying in Spanish. Rose paced the small space, while Marcus tried every emergency number programmed into the panic room's phone system. No one was willing to help. "Wait," Rose said suddenly, pointing at one of the screens. "Who's that?" A new figure had entered the penthouse, an elderly woman in an expensive suit. Sarah Stone, Marcus's mother, walked straight past the gunman and into his office where Reverend Williams sat. "Turn on the audio," Marcus ordered, hitting switches on the control panel. His mother's voice came through clearly. "I won't let you." "Heard them, James." Reverend Williams smiled at his old acquaintance. Sarah, still trying to protect everyone. "How did that work out last time?" "I should have exposed you years ago," Sarah said, her voice shaking with anger. "When I first found those records at the church, when I realized what you were using the congregation's money for." "But you didn't," he reminded her. "Because you knew what would happen to Marcus if you did, just like you knew what would happen to Gloria if she didn't give him up." In the panic room, Marcus turned to Gloria. "You knew my mother was protecting me?" Gloria nodded, slowly. "She came to see me a week after you left for Yale, showed me proof of what my father was doing. Said if I told you about the baby, you'd come back and he'd find a way to drag you into his world." "So you disappeared instead," Marcus whispered. "Both of you." On the screen, Sarah took a step closer to Reverend Williams. "I'm not afraid of you anymore, James. I've got copies of everything, all the evidence I gathered back then. If anything happens to my son or his family, it all goes public." The Reverend's smile faded. "You're lying. Try me." Sarah's voice was steel. "I've had 25 years to prepare for this moment, to make sure that if you ever found Gloria, you couldn't hurt any of them." Rose grabbed Gloria's hand. "Grandma Sarah was protecting us all along." But Reverend Williams started laughing, a cold, empty sound that made everyone shiver. "Oh, Sarah, you really think I came here without a plan?" He pressed a button on his phone. "Bring her in." The elevator doors opened, and 2 men dragged in a struggling figure, Detective Lisa Chen from the Organized Crime Unit. Her face was bruised and her badge was gone. "Detective Chen was getting too close to our operation," Reverend Williams explained. "She's been investigating church donations across the state, following the money, just like Romano did. And now, she's going to help us solve all our problems at once." Sarah's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "It's simple. When the detective came to investigate a disturbance at Marcus Stone's penthouse, she found a tragic scene. A desperate woman and her daughter hiding from justice. A deluded millionaire helping them, a faithful housekeeper caught in the crossfire, and you, Sarah, the mother who came to save her son, all of you killed in a shootout with police after the detective discovered you were part of a money laundering operation. No one will believe that, Sarah spat. The evidence will support it. Everything on Gloria's little USB drive will be altered to implicate all of you. And Detective Chen here will be the hero who uncovered it all, posthumously. Of course, the detective struggled against her captors. You won't get away with this. I've gotten away with it for 30 years, Reverend Williams said calmly. Ever since I realized that a man of God could hide anything behind a pulpit and a collection plate. In the panic room, Marcus was frantically working at a control panel. There's a way out, he said. A maintenance tunnel that leads to the service elevator shaft. I had it installed as a last resort. We can't leave them out there, Gloria protested, watching her father's men grab Sarah. Maria, Marcus turned to his housekeeper. The tunnel comes out in the laundry room on the 3rd floor. Can you get Rose to your son's FBI contact? Maria nodded firmly. With my life, Mr. Marcus. Mom, no, Rose began to argue, but Gloria cut her off. Listen to me, baby. That USB drive has to get to someone who can use it. All these years of running, hiding, it has to mean something. You go with Maria. Get the evidence somewhere safe. What about you? Marcus checked his gun. Your mother and I are going to help my mother and Detective Chen. We're going to end this, all of it. Marcus, Gloria touched his arm. Your mother kept us apart to protect you from this life. If we do this... He cupped her face in his hands. Every good thing I've accomplished came from you believing in me. Now it's my turn to fight for our family. Rose hugged them both fiercely. Promise you'll come back. We promise, baby, Gloria whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Marcus opened a hidden panel in the panic room wall, revealing a dark tunnel. Maria took Rose's hand, and Gloria pressed the USB drive into her daughter's palm. Together? Marcus, asked Gloria, as they watched their daughter disappear into the tunnel. Gloria picked up a gun from the panic room's weapons locker. 25 years of running had led to this moment. Together. On the screens, Reverend Williams was giving orders to his men, positioning them for what he planned to be a massacre. But he didn't know what was coming. He didn't know that love was stronger than fear, that truth was more powerful than lies, and that the family he'd tried to destroy was about to fight back. Marcus hit the button to open the panic room door. It was time to face the past and fight for their future. As they stepped out into the penthouse, Gloria thought of all the sermons her father had preached about Judgment Day. Well, Daddy, she thought, your Judgment Day is finally here. The moment Marcus and Gloria stepped out of the panic room, the air felt different. Years of running, hiding, and living in fear had led to this moment. They moved silently through the hallway, hearing voices. From the main living room where Reverend Williams held Sarah and Detective Chen. Your mother was always so righteous, they heard the Reverend saying to Sarah. She thought she could save everyone's soul, even mine, if she hadn't started asking questions about the church finances. So you killed her too? Sarah's voice was thick with disgust. How many lives have you destroyed, James? I prefer to think of it as protecting God's work, he replied smoothly. The church does so much good with that money. Who cares where it comes from? Marcus signaled to Gloria, pointing to different sides of the doorway. They had the element of surprise. None of the gunmen expected anyone to leave the safety of the panic room. In the service elevator shaft, Maria and Rose climbed down the maintenance ladder as quietly as possible. Rose clutched the USB drive that held evidence of her grandfather's crimes, her hands shaking but determined. Your mother is the bravest woman I know, Maria whispered as they descended. All these years, she only wanted to protect you. And Marcus's mother protected them both, Rose replied. Now it's my turn to protect everyone. Back in the penthouse, Marcus caught Gloria's eye and held up 3 fingers. A silent countdown began. 3, 2, 1. They burst into the living room from opposite sides. Marcus targeted the men holding Detective Chen, while Gloria aimed at the gunman nearest to Sarah. Let them go, Marcus commanded. Reverend Williams didn't even flinch. I was wondering how long you'd hide in that room. Gloria, baby girl, you always did have more spine than sense. It's over, Daddy, Gloria said, her voice steady. "We've already sent the evidence out. Even if you kill us all, you can't hide anymore." The Reverend stood up slowly, straightening his tie. "You know what your problem is, daughter. You never understood that sometimes evil has to be done to serve a greater good. The money I cleaned bought hospitals, built schools, and filled graves," Detective Chen spat. "Casualties of progress," he shrugged. "Just like you're all about to be." Suddenly the lights went out. Emergency generators kicked in, casting everything in a dim red glow. In the confusion, Detective Chen slammed her head back into one captor's nose and kicked the other in the knee. Sarah Stone might have been in her 70s, but she'd raised a son alone in a tough world. She grabbed a heavy crystal paperweight from the table and swung it at the nearest gunman's head. Shots rang out in the darkness. Gloria felt a bullet whiz past her ear as she dove behind a leather couch. She heard Marcus returning fire, then Sarah's scream of pain. "Mom!" Marcus shouted. The emergency lights revealed Sarah clutching her shoulder, blood seeping between her fingers. Detective Chen had managed to get one of her captor's guns and was providing cover fire. "Give up the drive," Reverend Williams called out, his voice eerily calm in the chaos, "or I start shooting to kill." In the service elevator shaft, Rose and Maria heard the gunfire above them. Rose started to climb back up, but Maria grabbed her arm. "No, Majita," the housekeeper said firmly. "Your job is to get that evidence to safety. That's how you help them now." Tears streamed down Rose's face as she forced herself to keep climbing. Down. Back in the penthouse, Gloria had worked her way around to where Sarah lay bleeding. "Hold on," she whispered to her, almost mother-in-law. "We're not losing you too." "I'm so sorry," Sarah gasped. "I thought I was protecting you all, but I just delayed the inevitable." "You gave Rose a chance at a normal life," Gloria assured her. "That's worth everything." Marcus had managed to take down 2 of the gunmen, but more were pouring in from the elevator. Detective Chen's borrowed gun clicked empty. "Enough!" Reverend Williams's voice boomed through the penthouse. "Drop your weapons or Sarah bleeds out right here." Gloria looked at Marcus across the room. In the red emergency lighting, she could see the same love in his eyes that had been there 25 years ago. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. They lowered their guns. "That's better," the Reverend said. "Now where's my granddaughter? And the drive?" "Gone," Gloria said proudly. "Far away from you." His face darkened. "Search the panic room," he ordered his men. But before they could move, new voices echoed from the emergency stairwell. "FBI, drop your weapons." Maria's son hadn't just called the FBI. He'd called in the whole organized crime task force. Dozens of agents poured into the penthouse, real badges glinting in the emergency lights. Reverend Williams reached inside his jacket, but Detective Chen, despite being weaponless, tackled him to the ground. "James Williams," she said with grim satisfaction, "you're under arrest." As agents secured the scene and medical teams rushed to help Sarah, Gloria found herself in Marcus's arms. They clung to each other, hardly daring to believe it was over. "Rose?" Gloria remembered suddenly. "We need to find Rose. Right here, Mom." They turned to see Rose and Maria in the doorway, accompanied by a tall FBI agent who looked just like a younger male version of Maria. "Agent Ramirez," the man introduced himself. "Or just Miguel to my mama. We got your evidence, and my team's been gathering more for months. The Reverend's whole operation is finished." Gloria hugged her daughter tightly. "It's really over? No more running?" Marcus wrapped his arms around both of them. "No more running," he promised. "From now on, we only move forward, together." Sarah was being loaded onto a stretcher, but she reached out to catch Gloria's hand as they passed. "I need to tell you something," she said weakly, "about the day I came to see you." The medical team tried to move her, but Sarah held firm. She had waited 25 years to share this secret. It was time for the whole truth to come out. The emergency room waiting area at Mount Sinai Hospital was quiet at this late hour. Gloria sat between Marcus and Rose while Maria brought them coffee from the cafeteria. Detective Chen was giving her statement to other officers down the hall, and Agent Ramirez coordinated with his team by phone. Reverend Williams and his men were already in federal custody. "Mrs. Stone is asking for all of you," a nurse announced. Approaching their group, they found Sarah propped up in her hospital bed, her shoulder heavily bandaged but her eyes clear. The bullet had gone clean through, missing any major arteries. A miracle, the doctors said. "It's time you knew everything," Sarah said, taking Marcus's hand, "about the day I went to see Gloria." Gloria moved closer to the bed, her heart pounding. She'd relived that day so many times over the years, but she'd always felt there was something more, something Sarah hadn't told her. "I didn't just find evidence of James's money laundering," Sarah began. "I found proof that he was involved in Gloria's mother's death." Gloria sank into a chair, her legs weak. "What? Martha, your mother? She was the church accountant. She discovered discrepancies in the books, large donations from shell companies. When she confronted James about it, Sarah's voice broke. "The car accident wasn't an accident at all. All these years," Gloria whispered, "I thought she fell asleep at the wheel. James had one of his associates tamper with the brakes. I found the payment records, the mechanic's statement. But I also found something else. Martha had made copies of everything. She mailed them to a lawyer in Atlanta the day she died." Marcus leaned forward. "What happened to the evidence?" The lawyer was scared. James's connections ran deep. He sealed everything in a safety deposit box. "When I found Gloria to warn her about the baby, I gave her the key. That's the real reason James has been hunting you, isn't it?" Gloria pulled out a chain from under her shirt, different from the one that had held the USB drive. On it hung a small key. "I never knew what it was. You just told me to keep it safe, that someday it might protect us all." "That box doesn't just have evidence of your mother's murder," Sarah continued. "It has 30 years of records, names of corrupt judges, dirty cops, politicians who took bribes. Martha was thorough. She documented everything." Rose touched the key around her mother's neck. "So when Mum found out what Romano knew, I knew it was all happening again," Gloria finished. "Another paper trail leading back to Daddy. That's why we had to run. I should have told you everything back then," Sarah said, tears in her eyes. "But I was so scared for all of you. James had already killed Martha. If you knew the whole truth, you'd try to fight him. And I couldn't bear to see another mother taken from her child." Marcus squeezed his mother's hand. "You were protecting everyone, Mom, just like always. But I separated you," Sarah sobbed. "I broke apart your family." "No," Gloria said firmly, taking Sarah's other hand. "You kept us alive. You gave Rose a chance to grow up safely. And now we're all together." Agent Ramirez knocked softly on the door. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need to talk about the safety deposit box. With that evidence, plus what was on the USB drive, we can put James away for life. We can take down his whole network." Maria, who had been quietly watching from the corner, spoke up. "First, these children need rest. The box has waited 30 years. It can wait one more night." To everyone's surprise, Agent Ramirez immediately backed down. "Yes, Mama." A small laugh rippled through the room, breaking the heavy tension. Even Sarah smiled. "Tomorrow," Marcus agreed. "Tonight, we're just family." As if to emphasize his point, a nurse brought in extra chairs and blankets. No one was going to separate them again. Not even hospital visiting hours. Rose curled up next to Gloria on the small couch, while Marcus pulled his chair close to his mother's bed. Maria fussed over everyone, distributing blankets and insisting they eat the sandwiches she'd brought. "Tell me about my grandmother," Rose asked softly. "What was she like?" Gloria smiled through her tears. "She was the kindest person I ever knew. She taught me to always look for the good in people, even when it's hard to find. She would have adored you." "Martha was the one who convinced me to hire Marcus's father at the church," Sarah added. "She said everyone deserved a chance to prove themselves. That's how Marcus and Gloria first met. 2 kids playing in the church garden while their parents worked." "I remember those days," Marcus said. "Gloria would make up stories about the flowers talking to each other. I thought she was the most magical person I'd ever met. And you would pretend to be a knight," Gloria recalled, "protecting me from dragons." Rose looked between her parents, seeing their shared past reflected in their eyes. "Did you know even then that you were in love?" "I knew the first time she shared her peanut butter sandwich with me," Marcus said. "I was 7 years old and I thought, this is the girl I'm going to marry." Sarah watched them all. Her son, the woman who should have been her daughter-in-law years ago, and the granddaughter she was just getting to know. So much time had been lost, but somehow love had found a way to bring them back together. Outside the hospital window, the first light of dawn was breaking over Manhattan. A new day was coming, one without running, without fear, without secrets. Martha would be so proud of you, Sarah told Gloria. You protected Rose just like she tried to protect you, and now? She reached for something on her bedside table, an old worn envelope. I think it's time you had this. Gloria's hands trembled as she took the envelope. What is it? The last letter your mother wrote, the day she died. She left it in my mailbox. I've kept it safe all these years, waiting for the right moment. As Gloria stared at her mother's handwriting on the envelope, she felt the weight of the past and the promise of the future. In this hospital room, surrounded by love, she was finally ready to read her mother's last words. Gloria's hands shook as she held her mother's letter. The paper was yellowed with age, but the blue ink was still clear. Rose pressed close to her side, while Marcus kept a protective arm around them both. Do you want me to read it? Rose offered gently. Gloria shook her head. After 25 years, she needed to hear her mother's words in her own voice. She opened the envelope carefully and began to read aloud. My dearest Gloria, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I pray that Sarah will know when the time is right to give you this letter. There's so much I need to tell you, baby girl, and I'm running out of time. Your father is not the man we thought he was. The church, his ministry, it's all a front for something terrible. I've spent months gathering evidence, documenting everything. The people he works for, they're dangerous. But I couldn't stay silent, not when I saw what they were doing to our community. I know they're watching me. Today I saw one of them following me to the grocery store. That's why I'm writing this letter and leaving everything I've found with a lawyer in Atlanta. Sarah knows where. She'll protect you when I can't. But that's not why I'm really writing. I'm writing because I need you to know that love is stronger than evil. I see how you look at Marcus Stone. I see the same light in your eyes that I had. When I first fell in love with your father, before he changed, before the money and power corrupted him, don't let anyone tell you that love like that is wrong. Don't let them say you can't be with someone because of where they come from or how much money their family has. Real love is pure, and it's the only thing worth fighting for in this world. I've watched you grow into such a beautiful, strong, young woman. You have my determination and your grandmother's gentle heart. Use both. They'll carry you through whatever storms are coming. If I don't make it, don't waste your life seeking revenge. That's not our way. Instead, live with truth and love. That's the best revenge against those who deal in lies and hate. And if you ever have children of your own, tell them about me. Tell them their grandmother wasn't perfect, but she loved them enough to stand up for what was right. Tell them I'm watching over them from heaven, just like I'll always watch over you. Remember the garden we planted last spring. The roses will bloom soon. Even after the hardest winter, flowers always find a way to bloom again. Love is like that. Too, it always finds a way. Be brave, my sweet girl, be happy. Be loved. All my love forever and always, Mom. The hospital room was silent except for quiet sobs. Even Agent Ramirez wiped away tears. She knew, Gloria whispered. She knew they were going to kill her, but she still fought back. Sarah reached for Gloria's hand. Martha wanted to protect everyone. The congregation, the community, you. She was the bravest person I ever knew. Rose hugged her mother tightly. That's where you get it from. That's why you protected me all these years. Marcus kissed Gloria's temple softly. Your mother was right. Love does find a way. The roses, Gloria said suddenly. Remember the rose garden at the church? That's where we had our first kiss. Marcus smiled. Behind the yellow roses. You said they were your favorite because they looked like sunshine. And now I sell flowers, Gloria realized. All these years running, hiding in plain sight, I chose to sell flowers. Maybe part of me was trying to stay connected to her. Maria, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. That's why you always kept yellow roses in your cart, even when they weren't the best sellers. Detective Chen appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted but satisfied. We just got word from the FBI team at the bank in Atlanta. They've recovered everything from Martha Williams's safety deposit box. 30 years of evidence, all preserved exactly as she left it. What happens now? Rose asked. Agent Ramirez stepped forward. Now we make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. Between her evidence and what Romano gave you, we can take down not just James Williams, but the entire organization. Corrupt judges, dirty cops, politicians, all of them. Your mother changed everything, Sarah told Gloria. She started this fight and now you're finishing it. Gloria looked at the letter. In her hands, at her mother's elegant handwriting, she said not to seek revenge. This isn't revenge, Marcus said firmly. This is justice. This is protecting other families from going through what we did. A nurse came in to check Sarah's vital signs, reminding everyone that she needed rest. As the others started to leave the room, Sarah called Gloria back. There's one more thing, she said softly. Something I never told anyone. The day Martha died, she came to see me first. She knew about you and Marcus, that you were in love, that you were thinking about running away together after graduation. Gloria sat on the edge of the bed, holding her breath. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I'd make sure you and Marcus ended up together. Those two souls are meant to be, she said. Love like that is rare. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I broke that promise. I thought I was protecting you both, but I was wrong. Can you ever forgive me? Gloria leaned down to hug her carefully, mindful of her injured shoulder. There's nothing to forgive. You kept us alive. And now we have the rest of our lives to be together. Outside the room, Marcus waited with Rose. Through the window they could see the two women embracing, the mother who had protected her son by sending him away, and the daughter who had protected her child. By running away, both of them guided by the love and sacrifice of a woman who had died fighting for the truth. The morning sun streamed through the hospital windows, painting everything in shades of gold. Somewhere in the city, Gloria's flower cart still sat on its corner, the yellow roses waiting for customers who would never come. But that was okay. She had new roses to tend now, the ones growing in her heart, nourished by love that had survived 25 years of winter to bloom again. 3 days after Sarah's shooting, the world seemed to shift on its axis. News, broadcasts everywhere led with the same story, a massive criminal enterprise exposed, with tentacles reaching into churches, banks, and government offices across the South. At the center of it all was Reverend James Williams, the respected preacher who had used his position to launder millions in dirty money. Gloria watched the coverage from Marcus's penthouse, which had been cleaned and restored after the shooting. Rose sat beside her on the couch, while Marcus paced behind them, talking on the phone with his lawyers. Another prosecutor called, he said, hanging up. They want your testimony about Romano and what he told you. They have the evidence now, Gloria replied. Both Romano's USB drive and my mother's records. Do I really need to testify? Rose squeezed her mother's hand. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Maria came in with a tray of coffee and her special churros. The agents are here again, Mr. Marcus. They're in the lobby. This time it was Detective Chen and Agent Ramirez, looking more relaxed than they had in days. They brought news that made everyone sit up straighter. James Williams is talking, Chen announced. He's naming names, trying to cut a deal. Will he get one? Rose asked, her voice hard. Ramirez shook his head. Not with the murder charges. Martha Williams's evidence is rock solid. The mechanic who tampered with her brakes is still alive, living in Florida. He's agreed to testify. Gloria closed her eyes, feeling the weight of justice finally settling into place. What about the others, the people he worked for? Federal agents are making arrests up and down the East Coast, Chen said. Judges, police chiefs, politicians, they're all going down. Your mother's records were incredibly detailed. She documented every transaction, every meeting, every bribe. Martha was a warrior with a calculator. Sarah's voice came from the elevator. She was in a wheelchair, insisted upon by her doctors despite her protests that she could walk. Marcus rushed to help her into the living room. Should you be out of the hospital? He asked worriedly. Sarah waved away his concern. I'm not missing another moment with my family. Besides, I have news of my own. Everyone gathered closer as Sarah pulled out some papers from her purse. I've been doing some research of my own these past few days. Gloria, do you remember the Church's Youth Scholarship Fund? Gloria nodded. It had been her father's pride and joy, or so everyone thought. Every year the church gave college scholarships to deserving students from poor families. It was real, Sarah said. That's the incredible thing. Your father may have been laundering money through the church, but Martha made sure some good came from it. She diverted a percentage of every transaction into the scholarship fund. She was helping kids escape poverty with the very money that was supposed to keep them trapped in it. Mom never told me, Gloria whispered. She couldn't. But she left records of that too, in a separate section of the safety deposit box. Lists of every student who got a scholarship, every life that was changed. Marcus sat down heavily. That's why she pushed so hard for me to apply. She knew the money was clean because she'd cleaned it herself. Your mother was fighting back. In her own way, Sarah explained. She couldn't stop James's operation, but she could use it to help people escape the cycle of poverty he was exploiting. Rose wiped tears from her eyes. She was a hero, a real hero. And now we can honor her. Legacy, Sarah continued. She handed the papers to Gloria. I've set up a foundation in Martha's name, the Martha Williams Educational Foundation. We'll use some of Marcus's resources and my savings to help kids just like your mother did. Gloria stared at the papers, seeing her mother's name at the top. Sarah, you don't have to— Yes, I do, Sarah interrupted. I've spent 25 years trying to protect people by keeping them apart. It's time to protect them by bringing them together. Agent Ramirez cleared his throat. There's something else you should know. When we searched James's office at the church, we found a hidden safe. Inside was a college fund for Rose. Rose looked up in surprise. What? Your grandfather may have been a criminal, Ramirez continued, but he kept every newspaper clipping about you. Your high school graduation announcement, your college acceptance letter, all of it. He had an account set up in your name with over $200,000 in it. Gloria's hands began to shake. He knew where we were? All this time? He had people watching you, Chen confirmed. But according to his confession, he never moved against you because he thought you didn't know about the evidence. He was hoping you'd just stay away, stay quiet. Until Romano told me everything, Gloria finished, and then he couldn't risk it anymore. Marcus knelt beside her chair. He might have loved Rose in his own way, but that doesn't excuse anything. He did. The money is clean, Ramirez assured them. We've traced it. It's actually from legitimate church donations, kept separate from the laundering operation. It's legally Rose's. Rose stood up, her face determined. Then I know exactly what to do with it. Mom, the foundation needs a scholarship fund, right? One specifically for children of single mothers. Gloria pulled her daughter close, feeling Martha's strength flowing through 3 generations. The money that was meant to buy Rose's silence would now help others find their voice. Maria appeared with fresh coffee and tissues for everyone. Detective Chen wiped her eyes quickly, trying to maintain professional composure, while Agent Ramirez didn't bother hiding his tears. There's one more thing, Sarah said softly. She pulled a small velvet box from her purse. Marcus, I think it's time I gave you this. Marcus opened the box to reveal a simple diamond ring. Mom? It was your grandmother's, Sarah explained. I was saving it for when you found the right person. I should have given it to you 25 years ago. The room fell silent as Marcus turned to Gloria, still holding the ring box. So I've lost so much time, he said. I don't want to lose another minute. Gloria looked at the ring, then at their daughter, then at Sarah, the woman who had tried so hard to protect them all. Finally, she looked at Marcus, seeing the same love in his eyes that had given her the courage to sell flowers on a Manhattan street corner, hoping somehow their paths would cross again. Sometimes love finds a way. Sometimes it just needs a little help from a mother's wisdom, a daughter's strength, and a family's unwavering faith in justice. 1 year later, the garden behind Marcus's Hampton estate bloomed with yellow roses. Rows of white chairs faced an arch draped with flowers, and the afternoon sun cast a golden glow over everything. It was a different scene from the wedding that almost happened 25 years ago, but this time everything was exactly as it should be. In the master bedroom, Gloria stood before a full-length mirror while Rose helped her with her veil. The dress was simple and elegant, no designer labels or society page glamour, Just a mother and daughter sharing a moment that had been 25 years in the making. "Dad's nervous," Rose reported with a grin. Maria caught him trying to adjust his tie for the 100th time. "Your father always fidgets when he's happy," Sarah said from her comfortable chair by the window. She was fully recovered now, though she sometimes rubbed her shoulder on rainy days. "He used to drive his teachers crazy, bouncing in his seat whenever he knew the answer." There was a knock at the door and Detective Chen poked her head in. She was off duty today, dressed in a blue bridesmaid's dress that matched Rose's. "Everyone's ready whenever you are." The past year had brought changes for everyone. The Martha Williams Educational Foundation had already helped 50 students start college. Agent Ramirez and his team had secured convictions against everyone in James Williams' network. The agent himself had become a close family friend, especially after Maria started inviting him over for Sunday dinners. James Williams had been sentenced to life in prison. Gloria had attended the sentencing hearing, not for revenge but for closure. Her father had looked old and small in his prison jumpsuit, nothing like the powerful preacher who had once ruled her life with fear. "I forgive you," she had told him. "Not for you, but for me, for Mom, for Rose. We're free now." The door opened again and Maria hurried in with a special delivery, a bouquet of yellow roses from Marcus. A note attached read, "For the girl who shared her peanut butter sandwich with me, I've been yours ever since." And Gloria touched the roses gently, remembering another garden, another time. But this time, there would be no secrets, no separations, no fear. This time love had won. "It's time," Sarah announced, standing up. "Are you ready?" Gloria looked at her reflection one last time. She saw her mother's strength in her eyes, her daughter's joy in her smile, and 25 years of hard-won wisdom in the silver strands threading through her dark hair. "I've been ready for 25 years, she replied. The ceremony was everything a society wedding wasn't. Intimate, genuine, filled with love rather than pretense. Marcus waited under the rose-covered arch, looking at Gloria like she was still that young girl in the church garden. Agent Ramirez stood as his best man, while Maria dabbed at her eyes in the front row. When it came time for the vows, Marcus and Gloria had decided to speak from their hearts rather than use traditional words. "I've loved you for most of my life," Marcus began, his voice thick with emotion. "Through years of separation, through all the success and empty achievements, through everything that tried to keep us apart, you were always there in my heart, teaching me what really matters." Gloria squeezed his hands. "You were my first love, my only love, my forever love. We lost so much time, but we never lost each other. And now we have this beautiful life, this amazing daughter, this chance to do good in the world together. I promise to love you for all the years we have left, to make up for all the years we lost." Rose handed them the rings, simple gold bands that meant more than all the diamonds in the world. "By the power vested in me," the minister said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. What God has brought together, let no one put asunder. At ease he." The reception. Sarah gave a toast that left everyone in tears. She spoke about Martha Williams's courage, about love that survives against all odds, about the power of truth to overcome darkness. "Martha once told me that love like theirs was rare," Sarah concluded, raising her glass. "She was right, but she was also right about something else, that love always finds a way." Later, as the sun set over the garden, Marcus and Gloria swayed, together on the dance floor. Rose was dancing with Agent Ramirez while Maria taught his FBI team the proper way to do the salsa. Sarah watched it all from her table, her heart full of joy. "Look," Gloria whispered, to Marcus pointing to the garden. The yellow roses were glowing in the sunset, just like they used to in the church garden where they first fell in love. "Your mother was right," Marcus said softly, "about everything. Even after the hardest winter, flowers always find a way to bloom again." Gloria rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I think she knew somehow. That's why she left all that evidence, why she fought so hard. She knew that someday love would win. And now we have the rest of our lives to prove her right," Marcus said. As the stars began to appear above the garden, Marcus and Gloria held each other close, surrounded by yellow roses and the family they had built through years of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering love. They had faced down evil with truth, overcome separation with devotion, and turned a story of loss into one of triumph. In the end, it wasn't about the money or the power or even the justice. It was about a boy and a girl who shared a peanut butter sandwich, who never stopped believing in each other, and who proved that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones that happen easily. They're the ones that are fought for, waited for, and finally won after all hope seemed lost. And somewhere Martha Williams was smiling down on her garden, watching love bloom again.